Welcome back to the 7th grade Mustache. On today's episode, we'll be speaking about the deprived and the deranged. People that are deprived of things, a certain type of nutrition, different types of nutrition, can have horrible effects on their lives and causing a chain reaction that reaches all the way into your life. So, we're going to address these things today so that you can spot these things and either repair them or avoid them to live a happy life and stay sucker free. The first one that we're going to start with is the most obvious. People that are deficient in sexual nutrition.
Period. I call it pussy deprivation. People who are not getting sex on a regular basis. Healthy, rewarding sex. They have a whole different outlook on life. They sweat the small stuff. They don't think clearly. They make statements and they march in front of buildings and make you feel like shit. Nobody wants to admit that a lot of these people are deprived, and that's why they act the way they act. So because they're unhappy in their life, they want you to be unhappy in yours, or they want to give you advice on what you should do when they're not even successful in that avenue of life either. Like I said, you knew the guy in high school. We used to make fun of him. But now you got a lot more women who are deprived, and next you know that they lead whole movements and shit.
Well, okay, there are people that have never had sex before, or they've never had fulfilling sex before, or There's a difference. Yeah. They've had it once or twice in their life, and they're still trying to get that itch scratched, and it's hard for them because they don't know first what their true expectations are, and they don't know themselves. That's the main problem.
I knew you was going. They don't know themselves. You can't know other people until you know who you are. Like, remember when we were in high school and everybody was on that thing where you have to have knowledge of self. You know, whenever you enter into these religions, most of them, except for Christianity, they don't really push it, but most of these other religions push knowledge of self first. You can't know God until you know who you are. Well, that's the same thing when it comes to a sexual relationship. You don't know what you like. You don't know who you are. You don't know until you experience something, or you like, hey, you know what? I'm comfortable enough with myself, or I'm comfortable enough with my partner to ask for this or ask for that. You know, when you're having sex, you're naked. You're not just naked physically. You're naked emotionally. That's one of your most vulnerable points. That's why
you are 100% see-through at that point. When you are butt-ass naked, you are 100% see-through. There's nothing you can hide.
Yeah, and that transparency is also where people get damaged. You know, another episode we had kind of mentioned on the R. Kelly. We all know that many people who become abusers were abused themselves. You know, but that's how sex is. When you're exposed like that, if you don't have a great experience, you can carry that baggage forever. Whether it was molestation, whether it's just somebody giggled at your dick, whether it's somebody made fun of you being a little bit overweight. And what people don't understand, even when that person damages you, a lot of people don't leave that person. They end up going back to that person over and over again.
Because they're seeking validation.
Yes. Even though that person may have hurt you or embarrassed you, what you want is validation. You don't just want a sexual experience. And the thing is, we always make fun of women, but men do it too. We confuse sex with love. Because it's such an emotional event, we attach love and these emotions that don't belong to it. When the truth of the matter is, you just got some. And second, again, how many people? The other thing that you said the other day, I don't want to steal your fire. A fulfilling orgasm. People don't be having fulfilling orgasms. They don't relax. You know, when you come, you know, when you're supposed to like see God, you know, touch stars and all this other shit. Some of these motherfuckers is like a rabbit. Like you bust a nut real quick, you want to bust a nut again. Nah.
They're getting the off-brand
physical. Yes, it's all physical.
No frills supermarket version of life.
Remember that plain label beer? It just says beer on it. This is just sex. But that's the whole thing, is that nobody's getting that you're missing something. That your desire, your needs aren't being met. You know, me and you always talk about this. I said, look, man, I want to help everybody make money. If you're making the money you want to make, and you're sleeping with the person you want to sleep with. You're not worried about me.
Okay.
And that's a big deal right there. People are not having sex with who they might be married for 15 kids deep, but they're not fucking who they want to fuck.
All right. So we're gonna go back a little bit because you have to know yourself. And before I learned sexual kung fu, I was decent. You know what I'm saying? I was pretty good. You know what I mean? Like I could hold my own. Everything was great, but it was just physical. It was just a physical, animalistic ritual. That's all it was to me. And there might be some love tied to it, but I learned sexual kung fu pretty early. I learned it when I was 19. I learned it when I was 19. And so, thankfully, I learned this pretty early in my sexual life. But what it did is that it created a awareness of my entire self, so that when I would have sex with these ladies, I would know myself so well that I could perform at my absolute highest. Now, this works two ways. That gives her complete satisfaction, and that gives me complete satisfaction, relaxation, and renewal. I realized that the act of sex was about balance, the yin and the yang, bringing the two together, balancing each other out. Once I learned this, I realized why I like pussy so much. Because it not only made me feel good, but it calmed my spirit body. It calmed my energy body. And so,
Look,
hold up. So hold your fire. So here's the thing. So not until you become the most complete version of yourself, or you're working towards the complete version of yourself, you're having one-sided sex. You know,
yes.
And people, they watch porn and they get these crazy, deranged, funhouse versions of sex, and they're like, oh, well, that's what they do. I'm gonna do that on TV, and they're just copying shit they see people do. The same way with music, you hear something and you think it's dope, and then you want to start reading about who this musician is, and you want to follow the way this person thinks until you realize, okay, wait a minute, I gotta do me. I gotta do me 100% all the time. And so you get this greater awareness. Yeah, I mean, look, it's a continual process. You're always working to improve yourself.
Growth. It's growth. You should be improving.
Yes.
You should be your physical. Okay, look, I want to be in shape because I want to be look, with the 3 F's, the fighting, fucking, and fleeing. I want to be able to run fast, fuck hard, and fight if I need to. And everybody thinks they can do that shit. Everybody thinks they can drive, right? Nobody wants to admit they're shitty at this stuff. So you want to be your best self so you can perform, you can satisfy your mate, but also that satisfies you when you know that person, when they're spiritually fed, because I get it, we got religion and all that shit, but there's other forms of spirituality. And when somebody's nourished spiritually, then they're not sweating the small shit. They're not up in your face about little minute details. They know what to let go and what not to. And I've seen it a lot recently. You got people who can't distinguish between what's important and what's not. I knew somebody who got violated, like somebody did them wrong, and they negotiated that away in their mind. But then some little shit, like somebody didn't proofread something, and they go nuts over that little shit. But the major shit, I'm like, somebody broke. That's illegal. How come you're not tripping on somebody doing something illegal, but then you'll trip on little minute stuff? That's the things. That's what happens when you're not sexually fulfilled. You're sweating the small stuff. You're not able to recognize the bigger picture, or you think this little shit is a big picture. I remember you told me about an experience you had recently where you were like, dude, come on, are you serious? I get it. You're an independent woman. You're very successful, but the shit you're talking, your behavior.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the manifestations of this deprivation. The first being language. Language is one of the most clear, obvious versions that a person is sexually distorted or they are deprived, or both. One example in language is if you see a guy and when he talks about women, he's really angry and bitch this, bitch that, and you choke them, squeeze them, blah, blah. But not just he's talking about women in particular. This person will then transpose that onto inanimate objects. I've seen guys talk about you got to grab that bitch like this, and you got to, and I'm like, you are broken inside. Something happened to you that completely warped your concept of what sex is, of what a woman is, what a vagina is, and
what people are. Period.
What people are. And
Well,
that's one example of it. There's other examples of how you can see it in the language of people. If a person is just cussing all the time, that is sexual energy escaping through their mouths. Straight up.
But here's the problem, Roscoe. Don't leave out this. Just because somebody has a lot of partners or has sex a lot doesn't mean they're being fulfilled. Sometimes people collect partners. You collect sex. And it doesn't mean that you're good at it. It doesn't mean that you're fulfilling people. Because, I've always tried to avoid having sex with people that my friends have dated or had sex with or whatever. But there's nothing crazier than when somebody's like, and a woman may not have identified to you that she slept with somebody, of course, they'll keep that secret. But then all of a sudden, if you do a good job and the other person didn't, or you blow her mind and the other person didn't, they can't help but mention it. And I'm like, this ain't what this is about. I'm with you because I dig you. I wasn't trying to compete with this other person. But the fact of the matter is, you assume because somebody's a hoe or a nigga is fucking a lot of women that he's good at sex, or because a woman's had a lot of partners that all of a sudden that she's experienced. There's a physical aspect, yes. There's a body count, yes, but that doesn't lead to experience and fulfillment and the ability to, convey, emotion properly. And that's what it is. That's why this person is cussing. They got that built up energy, or that built up frustration.
And
like
but hold on. But see, the thing is that it is like a dam holding back water. It's going to look for the weakest point, and it's going to just start to burst out through there, through cracks, through holes, through crevices. It may trickle out, it may burst out, it may shoot out, but it's going to come out at some point. So here's the thing, though, about this deprivation, is that there are other examples of this. Is that for a person, when you see them also not just speaking in such a way, but when you see a person and they are lusting after other people, and they're just lusting after, like, as in, like, uncontrollably, like they can't control themselves, like their neck is like on a swivel and they're just turning left and right, left and right. Listen, if you are with your woman or you with your significant other and you like looking at the opposite sex, it's okay to look, but you got to know how to look.
You got to be respectful in your looking. To glance is one thing, but to gawk, that's disrespectful.
Yes.
And if you do gawk, you better hey, babe, you see that? Man, yeah, that's a big ass. Woo, look at them titties.
But see here, that's a bridge for me. That's a bridge too far. What I do is I blink. I'll blink a lot because
you take pictures,
each time you take a blink, you're taking a picture. So you can then go back and recall that whenever you're sitting in line, you're thinking about something like, man, she was fine. And you go back to the image. Like, listen, don't turn your head, turn your eyes. Turn your eyes from left to right. But don't be obvious and don't disrespect your significant other.
Your mate, yeah. Hold it. There's something you just said that you got people that cuss a lot. That's one form. What about the flip side? What about these people that are super religious? What about the ones that the Holy Spirit? Okay,
those people are hiding something. Those people are hiding a fucking treasure chest of just deviant behavior.
Problem. Okay, I ain't dissing nobody, and I've grown up with people that really are legitimate, good Christians, good people. But you got a lot of these women that, the Holy Spirit woke me up today. Holy Spirit this, and knowing her husband is cheating on her, knowing her husband got 3 kids outside the marriage. I'm like, well, did the Holy Spirit stop him from fucking around?
Okay, but look at these monks. Look at these monks and these priests that aren't allowed.
Are they legit?
But the ones that aren't allowed to marry, and so in these religions where they don't allow these priests to marry, what you'll notice at these monasteries, there'll either be a winery where these dudes are making wine and they're getting toe up, making beer and wine and drinking on that stuff, or or they're in the middle where they're not some crazy person, or then you have people at the other end of the spectrum where they're sexual deviants and they molest
Yeah,
children, and that's how the
yeah.
Roman Catholic Church got the way that it is now with all these man boy lovers.
Look, what's going on is that you can't control that sexual energy, and you're not being honest with yourself. If you're going to be a religious person, then you need to have that balance, whether you're getting fulfilled spiritually or sexually. But there's some kind of way it should be both. You shouldn't have a longing or desire. You shouldn't be lusting after anything. You know, when you make that promise or when you enter into that, you should have a idea that hey, I can handle it. You know, and it's really hard, for people to sit here and admit that. Like I said, this goes back to, like I said, you got a lot of people that are saying that they're super religious and I did this and that, and I'm like, yeah, she's horny. She ain't got none in a while. Or there's nothing worse than when somebody comes on to you and they're married and you're like, yeah, I think you're attracted too. We flirt, it's cool, but I never would want to act on that shit. And these people are obviously have done it, or you got people who are super religious. I got somebody I used to argue. His wife would always argue with me about religion, and the devil this and that, and they were Jehovah's Witnesses. And something weird happened to me where I knew he had some infidelities. She hit me up one time, and I hung up the phone. Like she calls me. She's like, hey, Ren. And I'm like, hey, I'm not with Byron. You know what I'm saying? I'm at work. It's like 1:30 in the evening. In the morning, excuse me. And she's like, hey, I didn't call. I hung up the phone. And she calls back. I said, no. If you're not calling to talk to me about your significant other, and I'm telling you he's not with me, I know what you're calling for. Thank you, but no thank you. And second, you must be at least this tall to ride this ride. You're not ready for me. And I hung up the phone. Like I said, that I think she respects me. I think she's always respected me, but I know she respects me because she's never said nothing else to me. In fact, I told her to shut up one time in front of him, and she did. It was funny. But that right there, that's that lack of balance. You got kids, you're married, but you're not getting you're not getting that nourishment that you need. That's why when Roscoe was talking about nutrition, sexual nutrition, it is a thing. You're vulnerable. Sex is one of these things that nobody wants to admit. I remember last time we talked about vehicles, the things that unite us and join us. And sex used to be one of those things where, okay, hopefully you marry your high school sweetheart. You might have a couple lovers here and there. You get married, you settle down, you have a couple kids, and that's it. And then maybe you might have a couple hookers on the side that kind of thing, because it's a male-dominated society. But what happens when the woman's not fulfilled? What happens when she's not getting her needs met? And next thing you know, we love to shame women, but the fact is people need nourishment. You need to have spirituality. You need to have sexuality. You need to have mental. It needs to come together. You need to be fulfilled. You need to enjoy your work. And I don't mean your job. I mean that if you're with somebody, you should be satisfying them as they should be satisfying you. And I get it. A woman ain't just there for a man to have sex with. That's not what we're saying. We're saying, this shit is mutual.
Okay. All right. So, balance. Balance is the key. Balance is the key to avoiding many of these problems. And when it comes to sexual nutrition, the imbalance of your sexual energy causes problems that manifest through your appearance, through your language, through your actions.
Body language. Body language is big.
I have been in work jobs. I have been in work situations.
Professional situations, yes.
I've been in work situations where I have had a woman that I was working for, and I could tell that she was horribly deficient in sexual nutrition. And it was completely obvious through her actions and her words. She became reactionary. And many of these people become like their sexual organ. They become like their sexual organ, which is sensitive, like a clitoris, okay? Sensitive, very sensitive like a clitoris. And so if you say or do or the slightest thing,
it sets them off.
It sets them off. So because Their sexual energy has become so bound up inside them, they become like a fist. They are like the most strongest clenched fist you've ever seen. It's like an iron fist. It becomes just like that. And the lightest thing can set them off in the opposite direction. They become furious and they have all these outbursts because their needs are not being met on the most elemental and primal level. So, that is sexual nutrition. The next is emotional nutrition. So, people are often fond of saying to another person, "Oh, you complete me," because they are seeking somebody to fulfill them. An effective way in living is to be the best version of yourself and always seek to improve yourself so that when you find a mate that complements you, it is refreshing because you have things that you find relief in that person's attributes. But that person does not complete you. That person compliments you.
Yes,
There's a difference between
yes,
complimenting
yes.
you and completing you. But
Look,
these
that
issues can
completion,
go
yeah,
back to your childhood, though.
that's that greeting card. That's a Hallmark card. You complete me. The truth is, you should be a whole person. Two half-ass people can't make a whole relationship. Okay, if you guys are not whole, all you're gonna do is drain the other person. If you're a part of a person and you go to a whole person, you're gonna subtract from them. So you need to be a whole person. And don't get me wrong, people fall on hard times. Negative things happen. Life kicks you in the nuts, no doubt. But I'm saying that you should have been a whole person. You should know what you like. You should know your abilities, your strengths, your weaknesses. And that's what my brother was saying about finding somebody that compliments you. Like, hey, I'm not good at math. Look, my wife does a bookkeeping. I'm not good at working on cars, and my husband will do that. And I'm not saying that the house chores are for women and the yard work is for men. I'm not saying that's not what we're saying. But that's where the balance comes in because I know I have responsibilities. She knows she has responsibilities. That's the balance. And one of those responsibilities is, okay, hey, look, sometimes you got to do a little extra foreplay. You satisfy the other person because you want them to satisfy you. And the balance, and I get it. We might get selfish from time to time, but selfish should be a temporary thing and not a permanent thing.
Yeah, agreed. But this emotional nutrition, it stems from how much you were held as a child. It stems from, it sounds crazy, but it's actually true, and you can go and look this up in medical
Yeah.
journals. Babies, if you do not hold a baby after it is born, whether it's a nurse or its mother or father, that child will die.
To touch skin to skin contact. Remember, if you look it up, remember years ago they thought autism was caused when the mom didn't hold the kid enough. They actually thought that. Yes, that human contact is important.
Right. So it begins there because these imprints on your psyche begin from the first contact you have with the first human being. So, therefore, you then begin to develop relationships and bonds with friends and kids as you're a small person. You develop friendships. Some people, they go out and they make new friends. Other people are intimidated by the concept and they wait for people to come to them. And this forms the structure of the road that your life travels on or your trajectory that you're moving through in space and time. But this emotional nutrition, it comes about in whether or not your parent or parents gave you love. They gave you this
Affection. Yeah.
affection. For example, like when you were a small little kid and you are playing around in your diapers and you picked up something and you stacked a couple of blocks and you spelled your name, like your mom claps her hands, she's like, "Oh, good boy, good job." That's small, but that registers because your brain develops this connection with that parent and
Positive reinforcement.
the positive reinforcement. And so this parent is lifting you up emotionally and making you feel loved so that this person becomes this conduit between the divine and yourself.
Oh, yep, yep.
And
Look, you have to learn how to be loved. And so that's another thing. If your parents didn't teach you love, you won't know how to be loved when you become an adult. That's why you got a lot of incomplete people, because that there's a void there, and they try to fill it with anything. And sometimes it's sex, and sometimes it's other stuff. But since that void is there from the childhood until adulthood, and it hasn't been, whether it's counseling, whether it's religion, spirituality, whether it's a positive relationship, that shit's going to just sit there and suck. It's a black hole. It'll suck up everything around you. You got drug use. You got people who are self-medicating all because of that shit that happened to them as a child.
Listen, you know the best defense against passive-aggressive behavior is confidence. Because if a person, if you go to have dinner with somebody and they're just snarky and they're dour and salty and it's making all like, you wore that to the dinner? You chose this restaurant? Bitch, yes, I like this food. I like these shoes. I like this shirt. I picked out this whole fucking outfit for tonight. Well, clearly we don't fucking get along, so bye, motherfucker. Like, we not going to jail. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't waste your time.
You're a whole person.
Yes.
That's because you're a whole person.
Yes.
That's what being whole makes a difference.
And don't waste your time on a person that's just going to just give you negative all the time. That's clearly somebody that's disagreeable. And that's a whole other thing right there, is agreeable and disagreeable people. There are people that are emotionally bereft and deficient and suffering from emotional malnutrition, and so therefore all they know how to do is lash out. They do it so much they don't know how to relax and enjoy themselves.
They can't turn it off.
Yeah, and so they look for this negative reinforcement from movies and television shows, and they see these characters on shows or movies, and they want to copy this behavior, and they do it so much they don't know when to turn it off, and they don't know when to be their true selves, until their true self becomes a facsimile of something that's an amalgam of horseshit.
It's a caricature. They don't know who they really are, and so they extenuate the goofy shit. They extenuate, and it's really. I remember, like, I knew a guy. He hung out with me and my roommate. This is years ago, and this guy has a big brother, but he knew nothing about women. I said, "Didn't your big brother teach you nothing?" So he would hang out with us, and his whole thing is, he's like, "Hey, duct tape, because I'm fat." That was his thing. He's like, you can't get women. So I would pull women. He's like, "How do you pull these women?" I'm like, "Easy." I just talked to him.
I got a mouthpiece. I know. It's called game, dude. Like, I developed this.
We call it game, yes. But I got charisma. And so what I would do is try to set him up with women and create situations where he would be comfortable. Because he was a big dude. He was bigger than me. But also I would let him know when he did bitch shit, too. I'm like, "Hey, don't do that." That's not a good look. Or he would get a woman's number, like, "Oh, I'm not going to call her for a couple days." What the hell? Because because just what you said, he saw it in the movie, like Swingers or one of these dude movies he saw. You can't call her right away because you look desperate. I'm like, dude, you are desperate. Now, we just left the club. It's 2:00 in the morning. You call her and offer her breakfast. Let's go to the casino and have breakfast and get to know her. That's what I do. Oh, no. And next thing I know, he ain't call. I'm like, okay, look. Or we got a mutual friend, Sleepy, and you don't have no idea how many times I would get a woman's number, and he'd be like, "Hey, I lost her number. Can you give it to me?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." Then the girl called, "Why'd you give him my number?" I'm like, "He said he had it already." It never dawned on me somebody would sneak a number for a girl from me.
Hold on. I don't understand. So, what was he doing? Like, did he?
you know exactly. Okay. We go out.
Hold on. So he's doing some. This is straight from the Book of Shade Tree.
The Book of Shame. I thought you were going to say this from the Book of Shame. Yeah.
No, this the Shade Tree Nigga Chronicles. That's what this is.
So literally, we will go out, meet 3 or 4 girls. I would get all their numbers because I'm like, "We had a good time, and let me get your number. Whatever happens, happens." And so then he would go, hey yo, duct tape. I lost such and such a number. I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." And I would give it to him. Next thing I know, he calling her, bringing it on the phone, and doing some weird shit. She'll call, cuss me out. Like, "Why'd you give that nigga my number?" I'm like, "He said he lost it."
So
I,
all
when it,
see he okay, you see there, but
I,
he's that's two things though. Wait, stop. You gotta park it
yes,
right there.
preach.
That is so he is a save the children
Symbiote.
version. He's a save the children version of the sexual deprivation and the emotional deprivation. And
Yeah.
that motherfucker got it bad. So he don't because he doesn't approach women at all.
He does. Like I said, I got more stories, and I'm not trying to make nobody look bad.
No, let's not make it
But
about him.
yeah, it's not. And that's no. It's not, this is just about certain behavior. Like I said, you know, I'm an average looking dude, but you don't know how many times that women that were there for other people would come on to me or hit me up, and I'm like, I'm not that kind of guy, or things like that. But the thing is, that's because they weren't being fulfilled where they were. Now, women are whole people, true, but at that moment, these people were at their base, and they came to rock. They came for business, and somebody didn't perform their service, so they're going to go to the person with the most charisma or the person who's showing the most whatever, joie de vie, whatever it is, and they come in for that. But what you said was, like I said, the book of Shade Tree. That's funny as that. But what it is that person didn't have the confidence, or they weren't comfortable, and they were piggybacking off your success or your charisma. Which, like I said, this goes because you weren't talking just sexual. You said emotional. So they were emotional lacking. Their confidence wasn't there. Their self esteem or whatever it was wasn't there. So
Yeah, but see, but he wasn't getting none either though. So that's sexual too. So that's two
yeah, oh yeah,
sides of
no,
that
it's
though.
there. Yeah, because that's when that desperation leaches in. Look, like I said, it's not just about having sex. It's also about having sex with who you want to have sex with. You know, there's nothing worse, as your dad would say, somebody with a tourist budget trying to buy a Benz. You know, and what happens is when you buy that Taurus, then all of a sudden you trying to drive 200 miles an hour. That Taurus don't have that. It can't do that.
Mm-mm.
And so a lot of times these people settle too. That's a big part
What he would
of
say
their.
is you can't have champagne taste with beer money.
I know what he's.
That's what the fuck he would say.
I know, but the whole thing is what happens. Then that person feels like they're settling, even though they've married this woman, they married this man. They still feel like they're settling, and then they're longing for stuff. That's the lack of emotion.
That's why chicks marry the good guy, and they have affairs with the bad guy.
Hey, see, but men are just the opposite. They married a good guy and have affairs with the good girl too, or good girl. Everybody has what turns them on. I remember my dear friend that passed. He talked about his uncle. His uncle's married, lives in Tulsa, made a lot of money, but everybody made fun of him because he always had a problem for street women. He said, "Man, that dude, he loves that strange. He'll mess up a whole good relation." And that's that longing, like you said, like women like the bad guy. Well, some men like the bad girl.
Yeah, but he was also afraid to maintain normalcy.
Yep.
That see
That's that freak shit.
Yeah, see, because like he wants to put on the facade that he wants to like live the white picket fence house life, but he really want to be out there running them streets. That motherfucker don't want to grow up.
But he didn't have the heart to run the streets. You know, I shouldn't say a heart, but it takes a special kind of person to be out there in the streets. And he went to college, he did everything. He knew what he wanted, but he also knew that, okay, I need this. This is protection. My kids are safe. Blah blah blah. Look, when you see them people outside of the damn abortion clinics and yelling and shit, have pictures of, that's some fucked up shit. Why would you do that? You have somebody who is probably going through an emotional time in their life, and you think that's the time to picket? No, man. That right there, that's that repression right there. That's that visual repression. You can like, okay, I'm seeing this. That's sick. Why would you do that to somebody?
Well, also understand that some of those people are out there that are paid to be out there because
that's true. You're
the people
right.
that are paying them are in a cushy office job, you know, moving the pieces of the pawns, the pieces of the chess game around on the chessboard. You know, move the pawns around. So,
but there are people, like you said, that ain't had sex before, but want to tell you that you shouldn't be having sex.
mm-hmm.
You know, there are people out there that ain't never had an orgasm, but they sitting there telling you that how you should, what you should do with your body. I think that's hypocritical. I think it's very hypocritical.
Yeah. But sure, there's a lot of that. But see, again, that's why when you look beneath the surface of a lot of these extremists, there's a lot of deviance.
Yes, deviancy. Yes.
Mm-hmm. A lot of deviant behavior. So the emotional deprivation manifests also in other forms, where you have people who want to become psychological terrorists,
Yeah,
and
they want to control other people.
hmm and they want to control the highs and the low. They want to control your dopamine flow, and it's not voiced in that way. It's not planned in that way, but when you break it down, that's what they're doing. They're plotting the rise and fall of your dopamine and its manifestation in your behavior. And so they want to bring you all the way up and then tear you down
Yep.
because they're toying with your emotions. And so these people who like in the form of a person that was sexually molested, well, there's people who are just emotionally scarred and have been
Yes.
molested emotionally, and they go on to become these psychological terrorists.
Like people get used, but what you talked about was a big high, and then the deep low. Like, okay, I introduce you to something. Like, it's just like the drug dealer. We talk about pimps. Let's talk about drug dealers. They'll give you drugs free the first couple times. That's that big high. But then all of a sudden, when the party's over and you go back to your regular life, and now you're depressed because you can't pay bills, and you think to yourself, "When's the last time I had a good time?" You attribute it to the drugs, not attributing it to the scenario that you were in, the company that you're in. But you're like, nah, yeah, you guys were high, but you're not looking at that what caused you to have the euphoria. So you attribute to the drugs. Now you self-medicate. But that's because you're emotionally broken. There's a hole there you're trying to fill with something. Instead of recognizing that, you know what, you got the ability to change your situation, or you might have to work a little bit harder. Yeah, people don't like working hard no more, and it's so much of people being unfulfilled sexually. You know, some of it is religion. Some of them, you don't want to go to hell. You don't want to fornicate. All these, crazy words. I dig that, but at the same time, if you don't get to know yourself, you don't know what you like. You don't know what you're going to ask for. And then you're scared. Don't leave out fear. Roscoe, don't forget, people are afraid of other people. That's some weird shit. I don't get it. How else are you going to get what you want or meet somebody that loves you or likes you the same way unless you speak to them?
Yeah, no doubt. Uh, so going back real quick, I just remember something that I saw the other day. I was standing in line in the store, like waiting, and this lady, she was one of those people that just wanted to preach to somebody, and she just kept going on about, in this state there are males, but there are not many men. And I thought to myself, I was like, she just needs some dick. That's not her problem. Like, the only reason she
Yeah,
acting like
vitamin
this
D
is
deficiency. Yes,
she
vitamin D
is
deficiency.
deprived. She is sexually deprived, and she ain't getting no dick. That's the only reason she is going on and on and on. All it's gonna take. She was an old lady. So all it's gonna take was some old motherfucker. You know what I'm saying?
Dust
To
her
just
off.
knock her ass down, and she be like, "Oh, looks like there are some men." Yeah, bitch. Like you just your well is dry. You know what I'm saying? You gotta dust that
You
motherfucker
know,
off.
you done ran them all. Hey, I remember. Hey, do you remember the quarterback from Minnesota years ago, Dante Culpepper? Remember there was some big deal where they had there was a big party in this boat, a bunch of women, they were all having sex, blah, blah, blah. And these reporters and all these people, all these Bible thumpers were all criticizing them. And this one reporter goes, "It's not fair. You guys do not know what you talk about. You've never had 26 good-looking women come after you. You got like one or two women liking you your whole life, and they're sweat styles. But it's not fair for you to judge these men because you don't know what you would do in that situation. You don't know when you have these models and beautiful women and all this
But hold on.
adulation.
But keep it real. If anybody's ever watched Any Given Sunday, you know that some of that's true. And
Yeah, yeah,
there's hookers in that world a lot. And on that boat, there was a bunch of hookers on that fucking boat.
yeah.
So let's not get it
But see,
twisted.
yeah, that's true. There were some people
But
that were
hey,
there because they were
hold
paying
on. Everybody there is a fucking adult. That was a
you. Yes,
complete non-story. It was a
I
non-fucking
you
story.
will, but here's the problem. Like I said, the people that were criticizing have never been in a position where they could even experience it. So I'm not
No,
I'm not saying don't
duct
judge.
tape.
I'm not saying
What you heard, what you saw, was the precursor to the society that we're in now, where people
Yes.
are reactionary. They want to be outraged at the slightest fucking thing.
But back then we would have killed it. Now in this society, now they actually build whole careers on that shit. You got a whole networks based on that shit. And the issue we're trying to say is that you got a bunch of emotionally incomplete people who are in charge now, who are driving the market, and so that's crazy. You got sexually deprived people. You got people, you got all kinds of sex toys, you got all kinds of networks, you got all this stuff, but they're still deprived. So until you get that nutrition that you need, until you get that edification that you're looking for, you will make poor decisions. You will honestly believe, like, I've had talks with people about this. I'm like, yeah, you don't understand the motivation. Yes, I do. I'm like, no, you don't. Bitches are good for that shit. They're real good for it. You don't understand. I'm like, no, I do understand. You don't understand the motivation, and it's hard to explain to people, to a woman, especially nowadays, about a man's motivation. And I'm gonna give an example. This is a shitty example. I don't care what you think about me, but all these transgender men that are performing in women's sports, that is not fair. Okay, do you understand? And I'm trying to tell women, like, hey, you don't understand a man's motivation. So you mean to tell me that this dude lifted weights, probably came in last in every contest, and all of a sudden he becomes a woman and cuts his dick off, gets a vagina. She is a powerlifting champion. His desire to be number one in something that bad. Yeah, no, he was born a man. He was in a woman's body, and blah, blah, blah. No, I'm trying to tell you, men like conquest. They like to be in charge. They like to win. They have weird motivations. How many situations have they had these transgender women in the women's bathroom beating up on girls?
Okay, stop right there. The problem with this discussion right now is the fact that people don't understand or will not give credence to the fact that there are plenty of spineless little shitheads that fly under the radar in a lot of these social justice movements. And
yes,
a lot of these people get to hide while all the buildings are burning and the Molotov cocktails are being thrown and police cars are being turned over. There are straight up criminals in that mob. And that mob can be, these people that are have different sexual preferences, or they want to change their gender. It can be any of those. But you got shitheads in those groups too. So don't think that every one of these people that are involved in, being daring and being brave, don't think that these people are just the most pious, upstanding social people you ever met in your life.
Roscoe said some deep shit the other day. He said, because you're a vegan doesn't mean you're not an asshole.
All right, see, there you go.
That was some deep shit. I had to put it on the air. My brother's like, man, people think you're a vegan, that you're enlightened. It's just a diet. You're still a
Hitler
dick.
was a vegan.
You're still a dick. I remember this is years ago when this is before Black Lives Matter. This is years ago. This is about 5 years ago, and I remember watching this video where this Antifa guy, tall, lanky guy, was kind of feminine, and they were outside one of these abortion clinics, whatever. And this woman walks by, and they have a microphone, and it was a man and a woman. And like I said, the guy was real feminine, and the woman is interviewing the other woman. It's like, hey, how do you feel about abortion? She's like, I don't know. I'm not really for it. I don't agree with it. And the guy goes, bitch, and kicks her in the face. And I'm like, yeah. And I see this. I'll try to find the video, and I'm just like, this is what you're trying to tell me, that this Antifa, that was when Antifa first started. Like, yeah, I don't see this. They're being fascist. They're the ones pushing agendas. They're the ones, like, if you're about freedom and a woman has the right to choose, then she can choose not to have one. And she's like, I'm not really for it. That's her personal decision.
Okay.
You can't influence her.
So this brings us to the next portion of deprivation. This type of nutritional deprivation that we're referring to now is intellectual nutritional deprivation. So when I first began this quest to become a conscious individual, I would have conversations with people that I thought were wise. And the longer the conversation went on, the more they revealed that they weren't unwise. They were unwise, actually. They weren't wise. And if you let a person talk long enough, they're going to tell you everything that you need to hear. Just let them fucking talk. You'll hear everything. So, back in the day, there was a group, and they used to put out these books, and they would sell them on the streets, and they would always call it the right knowledge. And this cult, it was a black cult run by a guy named Malachi York. And this guy, who turned out to be a pedophile, and it wasn't some fucking setup, it wasn't a scam, it's just like this repeat fucking offender behavior, a habitual line stepper when it came to kids. But I'm not talking about that. What I'm referring to is the fact that what I would find is that he would give people nuggets of information in a scatterbrained fashion in a book. And it was always
yes, that's
something
deep. That's deep.
from, they would never put any, there was no like notes at the bottom. There wasn't a bibliography where you could just go and look up the book and be like, oh, okay, well, he got it from this book on page 74 and it's about Nikola Tesla. No, he would just cherry pick these things that would suit his viewpoint. And what I found is that the people who followed this person's teachings tended to be people who were feeble-minded, or they meant well, but these are people who wanted to be led. And, we had a show on cults and cult behavior and the types of people that join cults. But what I find is that there are many people in our society that want others to do the thinking for them so that they can go back and get on the carousel and eat cotton candy and enjoy the ride.
They're not responsible. They don't want to be responsible for their own well-being or their decisions. So
That's
that means
right.
if I make a bad decision, it's your fault or it's the cause. They love that kind of shit.
Yep. But you see it a lot, though. You see it a lot in many different types of movements. Even the people that stormed the Capitol in January of 2021. These people thought that they're going to go and tear up some shit, and that,
No repercussions.
that the higher-ups had their backs. They didn't think it all the way through, even though their fearless leader thought it all the way through to the point where he knew that he wasn't going to be there to support them when they were kicking up dust. So this points to intellectual malnutrition, the intellectual deprivation, because if you have common sense, if you are well read and you understand strategy, if you are well read and you understand lateral thinking, you wouldn't put yourself in a situation like that. You wouldn't put yourself in a situation where the rest of your life will be controlled by a institution that will tell you when to wake up, go to sleep, take a bath, eat, all that shit. I'm talking about jail. All right? And listen, that same mentality that goes for them white people that was tearing up the Capitol goes for these brothers that love to go to jail and see it as a vacation. They are one and the same. They're one and the same because those two types of people are intellectually deprived. They can't see beyond what's in front of them.
Look, I call it hyperbolic hypoxiation. That's when you have oxygen deprivation. It's the same thing when it comes to sex, knowledge, emotion, any of these things. You don't miss it until you don't have it, or you don't even realize you're missing it, because you become accustomed to being in this funk or going through this crazy shit, and then you get on these crusades and you do all kinds of crazy shit. But you don't even realize or recognize it as being crazy because the fact that, hell, you're trying to justify it in your own mind. You're trying to say, hey, I'm normal. And we use that word normal out of context. Normal is subjective. We all want to consider ourselves normal, but we all know that's what's uniqueness, differences is what's normal. We're all different. So that normal thing makes it sound like you're right or you're closer to this. It's not. That's a hustle. Look, you need to take care of your family, but if you're not being sexually fulfilled, you will do some deviant shit. You need that fulfillment. If you're not having your knowledge, if you're not having your brain stroke, or if you're not getting emotional, you're not being hugged enough, you're not being talked to in the right way, you're not being encouraged, Man, that shit causes all kinds of problems. And hell, you got whole dictatorships based on that kind of shit. You
Hey
got
man,
somebody in charge who's fucked up.
I'm gonna bring this down to a elemental level. I was outside the other day, and I saw this guy working for this landscaping company going around weed eating dead grass, dormant grass. So I said to my friend, I said, "Hey man, you see that guy over there? He is not a landscape worker. That motherfucker is a hustler and a con artist. Here's why. It's wintertime. There's no grass growing right now. What the fuck is he doing? Oh, they have a contract. No, 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 no. This is how it works. In this contract, I'm the customer. So I'm going to tell you that during the winter months, I don't have any need for your services because there's no vegetation growing. Well, hey, listen, buddy. Listen to me. If you want to continue with me as your customer, I will see you again in the springtime when vegetation begins to grow again and we have a purpose for you here. But during the wintertime, we don't. I sat back and I paid attention to this and I started going around town and I see more of these crews out cutting grass that's not growing. I'm like, these motherfuckers.
In November, December, and January.
These motherfuckers are hustling people, man. And people are not even paying attention because they're so used to like cutting checks and just paying a bill. They don't put thought into the fact that, there's no grass growing in the dead of winter, right? These motherfuckers are just they're just charging you to burn gasoline to run a weed eater and a fucking lawnmower. Dude.
How about this? They shouldn't cut it in November. They shouldn't have to cut it again until what? February? It shouldn't start growing until springtime.
Right.
Yeah, I understand.
March.
I understand. Yeah, I understand. Now, if you're out there sweeping up leaves, I dig it. I respect it.
No. But they weren't doing that. They were trying to cut grass so they would have something to sweep up. And I'm like, that's a real slick hustle for a motherfucker that don't pay attention.
Look, but people are collectively dumb now.
But see, but dig this though. But see, the hustle is widespread and it takes many forms. And this is the intellectual deprivation that I'm talking about. Because once you got game, it's hard to put over some shit on a person.
You can't put your glasses on. When you got game, you recognize it. That's what you always heard the term game, recognize game. What that means is that once I've been enlightened to how to game or a hustle, I see it everywhere. The fix is in.
Hey, man.
You can't turn.
Hey man, corporate welfare is welfare with a C
Period.
in front of it. So don't tell me that you want to get rid of welfare for poor people, but you want to keep it for rich people. Okay? That is a hustle. That's a hustle. All right? Also, just because you change the name of communism and you call it something else doesn't mean it's not communism anymore. Just because you give it a different name and you put a tweak here and you put a tweak there and you chop the front off and you put SOCI on the front, it's still the same fucking thing. Just because there's an app for things doesn't mean that it's something that hasn't always been around. It just makes it more convenient.
We love naming things to legitimize them. Look, I got ADHD. I'm saying it's a real thing. But I'm going to tell you, not everybody who's diagnosed with it has that. Some people actually just need a butt whip. They need discipline. They need a parent that's going to take the time and raise them instead of just feeding and clothing them. Being a parent is providing for your child, but being a parent is also raising them, giving them direction and discipline and understanding. So I know it's hard for people to understand, but it's hard to give what you don't have. And that's what happens with these situations. And that's what happens in all these situations. It's hard to give what you don't have. And there's an African proverb, beware of the naked man that offers you his shirt. I can't. People try. I'm like, it's not that deep. It's telling you, I cannot give what I don't have. You're not recognizing what it means. And people love to be all philosophical and shit. Fuck that. You need to be understanding, reading, exploring, seeing, recognizing how this works. I get it. But like the big thing that me and you talked about, we laugh and joke, but it's called polygamy, having multiple wives and all this. That's a big thing now. I'm like, yeah, my dad was a polygamist. He was a bum. Just because you give it a fancy name doesn't make it better, make it something special. It's still bullshit. The bullshit that comes out of a bull's ass is still bullshit. It doesn't make a difference if you call it roses, truffles, or anything else. Bullshit.
Yeah. But listen, though, teach common sense to your kids as early as possible.
Possible. Oh, come on.
As early as possible, because you don't want them to be amen. No, because you don't want them to be an all-day sucker. For real. Because you will create a human that is a walking target, a mark. And it's on you as a parent, as a uncle, as an aunt, as a mentor, as an older brother, as an older sister, to be there and look out for people by letting them know, hey man, these people that you hanging with, they're not in your best interest. They're not down with you. They're using you. You know what I mean? And that goes a long way in developing a person to be better at but like it allows them to like have a better self-defense.
Yeah, they won't get cheated on. They won't get stole. They won't get manipulated, because a lot of the shit, when it comes to the sexual stuff, people don't understand this manipulation, like white supremacy and male-dominated supremacy, is mostly about sex and having somebody available to you. And these people, when they get abused, they actually protect their abuser. They talk, oh man, well, it could happen to anybody. No.
But you know what? But you know what, man? Like one of the ways that I was intellectually deprived is when I found out how much I'd been lied to in regards to my own history, to our own history,
Yeah.
and the secrets that had been kept about the history, the true history of the African people. And when I learned about that,
it's necessary.
Well, that was actually strategic. Yeah, strategic.
Yeah, excuse me. It was necessary to perpetrate the lie and keep people dormant and keep people subjugated. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, but that is a huge stumbling block to a person, because if they're not aware of their own identity and the great things that they have done, it's like you put a person into a state of amnesia and you give them a complete lie of a life. And they're living this story because they're trusting you. And so for centuries, black people have trusted and trusted and trusted and have been lied to until we have gone and we have dug up the truth and the real history of who we really are. And it is in that point that we begin to free ourselves psychologically and emotionally and intellectually. You see, these lies still continue. But the worst thing about that is that a person that looks like you could be reinforcing those lies.
Yes, that's deep. Mm-hmm.
And that's the most horrid example of that. Is because
that's emotional and intellectual, though. That's emotional and intellectual, how that transpired.
That's right. But you have to ask questions. You have to. I say this on every show, and I'm gonna keep saying it because we got to get better at this discernment. You have to develop your discernment. In the church, they speak of discernment like it's a gift, but it's not. It's not something that is unattainable for everybody. We all have levels of discernment. Some have greater than others. We're at different places, all of us. But your discernment is a thing, a skill that you have to develop. It's a reflex. You have to develop this. It improves your perception of reality. And so this discernment will clear the brush. It will clear the jungle away from what it is you really want to see. And so it will help you to begin to nourish yourself intellectually. You see, that discernment. But see, that discernment also works on a emotional level. It works on a sexual level too, because you're a trifold being when you merge with another being. So
It's about application. All these things are great unless you apply them. It's cool, like intelligence without application. You always hear about the smart fool. Emotion without application. If you mostly want to work towards
Intelligence
something,
without application is a book.
that's all it is. It's a paperweight. Sexuality without application, healthy application. It's just you being frustrated, beating your dick someplace in a corner. So you have to apply these things healthily in a healthy way, but also recognize that you don't want to hurt nobody, of course. But it's important to apply your intelligence to your life. Having a degree but not being able to apply the knowledge, that's a waste of time, huh? You went to school for 7-8 years and you ain't got shit.
And how many angry people do you know that will tell you, man, I got a degree and I'm going to have that. Salty, hella salty, because they're not being fulfilled, because they were lied to, bamboozled,
It takes two people to lie. One to tell the lie, but another one to believe it. So that's why that discernment is important. You need to know where the bullshit is. You need to be able to smell that. Oh shit! Watch your step, nigga. It's bullshit.
Right. So to bring all these three phases together, these three levels together of this conversation, the sexual, the emotional, the intellectual, at the core of all that is your awareness. And you are, as a trifold being, are aware of many things. Now, if you choose to engage those different aspects of yourself, that is up to you. But if you are aware of it and you want to turn these off, then that is ignorance, because you just want to exist in a lie. But choose to improve yourself in each of the ways that we mentioned, and you will have a much more fulfilling life. You have to strive to better yourself in each way. Be a better lover so that you can be fulfilled and you can be fulfilling to other people. See, you can't be greedy as a lover. You can't. You simply cannot, because the giving and the receiving are tied together. Because you have, I mean, you can't block it. You can't block your blessings. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to be generous in the bed, because that person that is reciprocating your energy is will balance you out completely, and you will have a solid and fulfilling and healthy sex life. Emotionally, it is the same thing. You have to be willing to take a chance on a relationship. You have to open yourself to a relationship with a person that you perceive to be healthy and balanced emotionally, because then you will then receive what you're giving to that person. It'll be a cycle, a continuous cycle of love, right? And so intellectually, you have to ask the questions. You have to go out and find, like the X-Files said, the truth is out there. You have to go and get it. That shit is in a book. You want to hide something from a person? Put that shit in a book. But you want to find like just a fortune and mental gems and intellectual gems, it's in books. Go and dig this stuff up. Everything you see online is being quoted from books. Go and crack some books and smell them old ass books and go digging for information, because it's rewarding. It improves you. It makes your mind stronger. And always read. Always dig for more information. No matter how old you get, keep learning, because it keeps your mind sharp. You may find yourself aging and your memory is getting faulty. Well, that means you're probably not eating right. That probably means you stopped exercising. And how would you know that? Go fucking read it. You know what I'm saying? Go experience it. But then the last part of all this is life is in the doing. All these things that we've just talked about, you have to live. You can't be that person that wants to tell me about red delicious apples and you never took a bite of one of them motherfuckers. Your word don't mean nothing to me if you don't have no life experience. You have to go out and you have to live. You got to make mistakes. You got to learn how to fuck so you can be good at fucking. and then then you know what some good fucking is. You know what I'm saying? And then you gotta love, because you have never lived unless you have loved. Let the church say amen.
Amen. Look, um, we try to make it seem like it's not complicated. It is, because sometimes it's hard to do this shit, especially in the moment. But practice, get stronger, and increase your strength. That's all you can do by exercise, mental exercise, emotional exercise. Take chances. Find out who you are.
And then another thing is that the better you get at all these things, the more desirable of a person you are. Not just somebody that people want to fuck, but people that like being around, or
Yes.
people like just want to have a conversation with because you got good conversation.
They enjoy your company.
Bingo. So, be well versed at many different things. And that can be in a narrow spectrum. I know. I'm not saying you got to learn to do a bunch of shit. Listen, the world is at our fingertips now. Sample it. Check it out. See what you like, see what you don't like. Develop an informed opinion, not just a dirty booty hole of an opinion. Everybody got one of them. So
yeah, everybody got an asshole. They all stink.
Exactly. So, in closing, all I have to say is expand your awareness, test your limits, learn, improve. Don't be deprived.
Talk to that pretty girl. She might like you too. Holla back.
We out. Peace.